So the 2024 Hyundai Santa Fe just dropped somewhat recently. Haven't seen any on the road, so call it recently. Um, Looked at it. I like it. Kind of like some stuff. Don't like some stuff. Think it's somewhat similar to this car down here, as you can see based on the thumbnail. And just want to talk about that and kind of compare the two. So, without further ado, jump right in. First things first, I think looking at least from the front view, um, I think these two cars are pretty similar. But from the front view, I think the starting with the Santa Fe, definitely boxy, like from start to finish. So you got this H, you got this light bar, which is like, if you're a new car, you gotta have that. Lines right here, lines right here, straight everywhere. What I do like kind of about the Santa Fe is like I don't know why they got these H's everywhere, but H, you got a big H right here, and yeah, it's just H's everywhere. So that's cool, I guess. But um, when you look at the Defender, obviously the Defender also is pretty boxy, but if you look at it, I think these lines here kind of, even looking down here at the bottom, you have that versus down here where you have up here where you have this straight line. It's still pretty boxy, but a lot more rounded than the Santa Fe. You can see too in the headlights. I don't know if this is really like the biggest deal, but you see how you have the straight box line versus the Defender, how you have these kind of bubbly headlights. Another thing with the front is the treatment of the hood. Now, I don't think every Defender looks like this, but I do like how they have this kind of risen part right here, and how they have this part right here. I think it looks super cool. But yeah, I don't think that's on every Defender. But yeah, this is just pretty plain Jane. But never hurt anybody to just keep it simple. But the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on in the front was the treatment of the windshield. You can kind of see here is pretty far off from a 90-degree angle versus on the Defender they are not all that far off. So that kind of gives this a bit more of a like Jeep rugged kind of back to the old Defender versus this one, which is a bit more sleek. And I kind of like how they did the kind of rugged overall look compared with the sleek kind of profile of the windshield. I think it looks pretty good. I think that gives the front kind of an edge for the Santa Fe versus the Defender. Another thing too, before we go to the side view, is the use of like all this piano gloss black. Usually not too big of a fan, but I think in the front end, you kind of see how they moved it to the side here too, and a bit in the back. I think they did it pretty tastefully, so I think it definitely looks pretty good, especially along with these big old black wheels. I think that looks pretty good. So moving on to the side view, I think this is where these two cars are most similar, at least to me. The first thing I kind of see that's different from the two is this nice, if I can get to the correct layer, this nice shoulder line in the Defender that you don't really have in the Santa Fe. Both look pretty nice from the side view, and obviously in the Santa Fe you do have this line here, this line. You have these lines that kind of keep with the rugged and the long swooping lines that makes a car look pretty good. You had that in both of these cars, but two, I kind of wanted to point out this line and say, even though it doesn't look too similar to this one, I think Hyundai definitely had their eyes on Range Rover, because I think they have a similar treatment with the windshield, as you can see here, or not the windshield, but the side windows. This line right here, and the way that they have the the windshield, or I keep calling it the windshield, but the window height kind of goes into the body pretty seamlessly with like no interruption there. I think you kind of have the same thing with the Santa Fe, and I would say that's a bit based on the Range Rover. So I think they definitely had their eyes over there, kind of spotting what they were doing. I think another way that they're similar is the treatment of the pillars. You see the A pillar, B, C. Same with how they blacked them out here. And I wouldn't say that Range Rover was probably the first ever to do it, but they were the first that I seen doing that kind, which kind of makes the gives for the floating roof look. You don't really have it too much with this car just because the black roof, but obviously with other colors you kind of have that look. Get that out of there. And I think that's a pretty good look. So I wouldn't be mad if they, took that from Range Rover. This another small thing here, I think looks pretty good. I would say it's a bit more dramatic in the Range Rover, but I think it looks pretty good in both the Range Rover and in the Santa Fe. Another thing I want to touch on before we get into the rear view is this line right here. I definitely like how it comes from the back, and it also touches into a line that they have in the back as well, which I think is pretty good. But it comes from the back and then it comes right down. This is a terrible line, but then it kind of like blends into this wheel arc that I want to kind of talk about, which is definitely taking a more rugged approach for wheel arches than the Range Rover is, which is like they kind of did like a half octagon just to, I suppose, maintain those straight lines everywhere, versus in the Range where you have more rounded approach. And even though you have up here at the top the more rugged straight line look, I think for me personally, I think this definitely looks better in the Range Rover with the rounded look. Like I don't think you need to go 100% dedication to straight lines to get a good look. I think either way, I think they both look good, but for me personally, I think the Range looks better. And another way too, I think I saw in a picture Santa Fe had this like this little box that they put back here. I'm assuming for like, I don't know, fake tools. I saw they had one on the Santa Fe in a picture, so I'm like, to the point where they're not even really hiding the influence that they're getting from the Range. But last thing from the side, I definitely like these wheels more than the Santa Fe. These just both black. I'm definitely a fan of black wheels, but I think the Range looks better. And I think with the way that they did the wheel arches, I think the Range definitely fills out this wheelhouse a lot better. Like this just looks like it's supposed to be here. This definitely looks good too, and it's like splitting hairs, but I think the Range definitely fills out the wheelhouse a lot better than the Santa Fe. And on to, didn't mean to do that. Onto the rear. Now this is my biggest problem that I have with the new Santa Fe is this tail light. And I'm gonna pull up this picture here to look at it from a quarter view. This tail light just seems like it's way too low. It seems like it should at least be somewhere like up here as opposed to where it's at. I think this just gives it the look of a van, and not like even a minivan, like a utility van that's like going out and transporting wood. I think that just looks bad. But a possible solution I would say would probably have just been like how they do like the Cadillacs and the Volvos, just put like the headlight somewhere up here. I don't know exactly how that would look, but it's been done, and I feel like it just doesn't look good to me. It kind of ruins what I think from any other view is a good looking car. The rear view, this just pretty much throws it off for me. So that's my only gripe. But like I was saying, from the side view, I do like how they put this line here, and then it doesn't just like disappear into nothing. It continues onto the side and then fades into this, which I think is pretty nice. And then especially looking at it from like not coming from the rear to the back, coming from the front to the rear. It kind of sends the car off like in a pretty nice way, kind of like almost like a shooting out the back type of situation. Even though it's probably not that fast and it's a rugged truck, but still it's a good attention to detail in my opinion. But looking at the Range Rover, this I definitely do like. I think the way that they have these lines all like vertical, you would think maybe that wouldn't really work in the rear end because you would kind of want more like long wide lines to kind of make the vehicle look, a bit wider, a bit chunkier, more planted. But for some reason this vertical line setup they have going on kind of plants the car. Even looking at it from like this, if you was to create a line like right here, I think this just does a pretty good job of planting this car, making it look pretty chunky, pretty fat, set down on the ground, even if the graphic elements don't really seem like they would do that. The only thing I do wish on this is that these wheels were about like this thick, similar to like the Mercedes GLE, and the way that they have those like fat tires on the back. I think that definitely helps plant the vehicle, making it look a lot chunkier, which is a good thing when it comes to the rear end, in my opinion. So enough of me talking about how ugly the back is. Get into the interior. Now again, the interior is like the same car with different vibes. The main thing, we want to talk about something again looking like a van. I think if you're buying a Range, you don't want this here with this fat thing. Like at some point, this shouldn't be here when you're spending a certain amount of money. And then two, just with the way that this kind of sticks out here like this, and you kind of have a similar thing with the Hyundai, but I think they did it a lot better, without having a fat gear selector sitting right there either. I think it just doesn't look good, and it looks like it's a lot of plastic, even though obviously it's a rugged fake going off-road. Even though you're never going to go off-road in this type of car, I think this should be a lot better. And I think that's kind of the approach that Hyundai took, kind of still giving you that, like you have straight lines here, everywhere pretty much. You have these long flat lines, even the screen, everything is like that, just giving you straight rugged look, but it still has that modern, like up-to-date look that you would want out of a car once you get to spending a certain amount of money. The one thing I don't like about the Hyundai though is the screen. Like I do like how in the Range you have dedicated gauge cluster here. Looks pretty good. Obviously it's a screen in there, and then you have this screen by itself. And I think that's a better look than just having this all just be one thing. 'Cause I think it eliminates the coziness of being like the driver and just having the gauge here in front of you versus just having like everything just here in the open. And it seems like that's the way that car design is going, but I think it could definitely look better. But interior wise, I definitely like the Hyundai. But moving away from that, going back to overall, looking at the two, I think they're both nicely designed vehicles. For me personally, I think I like the exterior of this one, of the if I can remember what it's called, of the Defender, a lot more than the Santa Fe. I will say that the rear of the Santa Fe kind of ruins it for me, for one. But from an interior standpoint, I think the Santa Fe definitely has the Range beat. So it'd be a pretty tough choice. But maybe we get the Range with a nice color interior, maybe spruce it up a little bit. I think the Range would be better. So for me personally, I think I might take the Range. But I do like both of these cars. I think either way, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. So that's all I have. Hope y'all enjoyed. Stay smooth. Be safe. Deuces.